Bradley in Swindon. Why, oh why, are we considering drilling for more oil in the North Sea? And don't say energy security, please, when it's just going to be sold abroad. According to government stats, around 80% of the oil produced in the North Sea is actually exported. George?
Well, why, oh why indeed. And in fact, the government has also conceded that that's not going to bring down people's energy prices either. So it seems almost to be like a statement of intent that, we intend to burn this planet. We're going to leave our mark, and that mark is going to look like a
but they say
blinking great
won't affect the net zero target by 2050.
Oh, look. Everyone who knows about this, everyone except the climate deniers, including the International Energy Agency, which is no Greenpeace, says we have to leave fossil fuels in the ground if we are to have a chance of avoiding truly dangerous levels of climate breakdown. That's the only safe place to leave them, in geological strata. And the more governments license new fossil fuel extraction, as our government is doing, and indeed, unfortunately, Joe Biden's government is doing as well, then the more our chances of remaining within the slightly less dangerous bracket diminish. And we're pushing and pushing Earth systems towards potential collapse.
Greg?
Well, they should have done it a long time ago. The world needs fossil fuels, and fossil fuels have been liberating people for generations, and there's less poverty and more growth, and so many millions of people have.
Isn't that a short-termist view?
No, not necessarily. I mean, look, it's unrealistic to think that we can end the use of fossil fuels overnight. The only thing that
Who's talking about ending the use of fossil fuels overnight? Where did that come from?
Well, there need to be.
That's a total straw man argument. You plucked it out of the air. Nobody is saying we should be ending the use of fossil fuels overnight.
So we need to provide more fossil fuels at decent prices. The more hostility to the energy sector, George, the higher prices go.
I'm not remotely hostile to the energy sector, and I can tell you that renewables in this country are much, much cheaper than fossil fuels. If you're trying to heat your house with fossil fuels, you're spending a fortune doing so.
I hope you're not.
If you're trying to generate power with fossil fuels, you spend a fortune doing so. We make it much
wind
cheaper.
And solar when there is no wind and there is no sun. But
that people worked out how to do grid balancing quite a long time ago.
So you're saying that fossil fuels should be developed and sold around the world, but not here in the UK?
No, and say everyone should be developing and selling less fossil fuel. That is what the Paris Agreement says. That is what the great majority of governments have agreed to do. That is the only way we're likely to avoid truly dangerous levels of climate breakdown. And given that in the UK, renewables are now considerably cheaper than fossil fuels, there is absolutely no argument for extracting more.
Without subsidies, the wind and solar is cheaper and more efficient.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So let's ignore the argument whether we should end the use of fossil fuels for a minute. You're saying fossil fuels are okay.
No, I'm not saying fossil fuels are okay. I'm saying fossil fuels
shouldn't develop more of them.
They should have more, and we should be phasing out
an example.
those
the hostility
that we are
to the energy sector that started in 2021 when Biden entered office. All it did was make the swing price higher. The U.S. had become energy independent and the world's leading provider of energy, just like the U.K. was energy independent in 2005. But when the prices go up, guess who benefited? Venezuela, the mullahs in Iran, and Putin.
This is just xenophobic nonsense. This is absolute trash.
Much as I'm enjoying this discussion, I have an eye on the clock, and we literally have 90 seconds for our final two panellists on this. Kirsten is gagging to speak.
Well, I hope there's not been a wide camera angle, because I've been sitting here with my mouth hanging open at some of this. Let's not engage in climate denial. Let's be real about the challenges that we face.
I think Greg was engaging in climate denial.
I felt that was where we were going.
Natural gas and liberation in America.
Because I let you finish, Greg, if you don't mind.
Can't wait.
That's a little bit rude.
No,
it's a really
can't wait to
serious situation that we're dealing with. And that exchange is profoundly unhelpful to anyone who's worried about the climate. And it's also unhelpful to anyone who's worried about renewable energy. I did ask about that in the Commons today, as it happened. And the answer, as usual, I'm sorry, Dean, was absolutely nothing. There was no answer on why the UK government can't do what the Scottish government's doing. People need that to happen, and so does the planet.
Dean.
Well, I think the strength of this argument and debate tonight has shown why it's so hard to have a proper debate, because people just get shouted down for having a view. The reality is...
I think with respect, George... He was passionate about this.
Passionate,
he didn't shout down.
Fair point, OK. But I think the problem is we need a serious debate on these things. But the truth is, the idea that importing energy from other places is better somehow, and the carbon emissions from that is better than making it at home, is, for me, I find really absurd.
So how about leading by example? How about leading by example, Dean? How does that work?
Well, I think we are leading by example in so many ways.
What, by drilling more oil and gas? You think that's leading by example?
I think we need to make sure that when we're arguing in the first question about cost of living, that we're making sure that the cost of living is going down.
Affecting cost of living. Your own government says this will not reduce energy prices for consumers.
Oh, how I wish we'd done this question earlier in the program, because I'm afraid I have to call a halt to this.